this part, the social media revolution. So, in the end of this, I would like to share with you a strategy that it's focused on social media. But before I get there, I felt like I really needed to share with you how the social media it's changing the way we live and how it is changing the way we do ministry actually. And so here is the question I would like to answer. What is the shift that this digital revolution is presenting, and how do we prepare for it? Now, I believe the biggest change that is happening around us are the result of a shift in how we communicate, because social media are changing the way we communicate, interact with each other. Let me share a picture with you. You probably know this guy, or have you seen or heard about him before? It's from the 1500, that old, 1400 actually. Or maybe let me show a picture of him when he was younger. This guy here, it's called Johann Gutenberg, or as we know him, Gutenberg, the inventor of the printing press. We do not know much about him, but the world changed because of his invention. I put here Gutenberg printing press made knowledge available to all, because through this invention he was able to get the the information from one source and mass distribute it to hundred and thousand people. It was 1440 then when he was able to achieve his project to invent the printing press. And the first question he asked himself was, how do I use this? What do I do with this? And then he said, I am going to print the Bible. So Gutenberg, we know this as Gutenberg Bible because that was his first project. And one of the copies of the Bible came to the hands of this person here, which was his name was Piccolomini. Later on, this guy became Pope Pius II. We have our brother Pius here, but this is another guy. So Pope Pius uh, came, like learned about this Bible, the first copy that was printed by Gutenberg, and he said, this Bible has such fine letters that I can read it even without my glasses on. But this Pope never knew that this invention of Gutenberg would trigger also what we know today as the Protestant Reformation and reform the Catholic Church in a way that they had never imagined before. Besides the Bible, Gutenberg, there were thousand and thousand other books that started to be printed out, and so that's what's everything was started to change. The knowledge that was a privilege for only a few people now was made available to thousand people. And I put here also a document from Martin Luther and the Protestant Reformation. There were many reformers before Martin Luther that wanted to reform the Catholic Church in those days. But Martin Luther happened to be in a time when the printing press was invented, and he was able to print his 95 Theses and made them available to all. Also, Nikolai Copernicus, that I'm sure that everybody has heard, the famous Catholic clergyman and scientist. He he was able actually to use the printing press idea principles and to print his work by revolutionizing the science, because up to that time people believed that the world it's in the center of the universe and everything circles around the world. But Copernicus, together with his work, he made that available to people that actually it's the sun and everything it's sun, it's stationary and everything centers or evolves around it. Other works like this is also Newton, Isaac Newton, and the science in mathematics. He was able, this work was able to be printed out and to be distributed to the masses, causing so the Renaissance and the scientific revolution. This document here, it's the first banknote. It's the first money printed. And the reason, like I put it here, it's because money started to be printed because of the printing press invented by Gutenberg. And so it revolutionized the banking system. Also, the world experienced also the industrial revolution. This guy here with a small picture here, his name is Henry Ford. And Henry Ford said, he's the inventor of the automobiles, the Ford car that it's very famous. And he said, what if I start to print cars in quotes? What if I start to use that same principle from Gutenberg, and instead of just building one car after another, what if I start to mass produce them as the printing press does? And so he created this factory when he started to produce cars, and many other industrial companies started to use the same principles, causing so an industrial revolution. I mentioned already the Protestant Reformation, but what I want to highlight here, which is very important, is that printing press or Gutenberg created a way how people communicate that I like to call it from one to many. So the information would come to one source and that was distributed in mass into the masses from one source to many other. And I like to use this picture here that emphasizes this. There is this guy in the ladder with a megaphone and the rest is listening. So the one-to-many communication created what we know today as audiences, maybe passive audiences. And media also use these kind of principles like radio, TV, newspaper. They all use this kind of way of communication from one to many, and the many are just audiences, passive audiences. Also, the church used the same kind of principle. Like crusades started to become more and more the way of doing evangelism. You would find a famous preacher and with a megaphone, and he would speak to the many, to the masses. And this is where it, like the word crusaders in the 1950s, started to become very famous because it was an efficient way of communicating the gospel to the many, from one to many. This started, actually, this one-to-many way of communication has changed the culture, has changed the industry, has changed the banking system, has changed everything. And this started like this lasted till internet came. And internet changed the way we communicate completely. I got a quote here from 1995. It says here, whereas television creates an audience, the internet creates community. No other medium provides the same opportunity for such immediate interaction, collaboration, and participation. This was said in 1995 when internet was still very new. But what this quote is saying is television creates audiences, maybe passive audiences. Internet creates community. Now, internet changed the way people communicate. I like this picture here because it looks like compared to the previous, what Gutenberg did, like internet gave a megaphone in a way to everybody. Now everyone has a voice. Everyone can write an article. Everyone can respond to something using this medium, the internet. So what internet changed from one to many, Gutenberg, internet changed it from many to one. I will not get into the details of this because I feel like this is a phase that it's changing. And what it's changing this many to one, it's the social media. That's my interest, and I would like to focus here primarily how social media it's changing the way we communicate. In social media, people realize that we do not need to be in the field and shout back to the one who is bringing the content. We can create the content and we want. So in a social media environment, what they did, it's they changed the way we communicate by having everyone now create a content. So there was not only the guy in the ladder who has the content and people respond to it, but social media created this platform where everybody is a content creator, creating so what I called many to many way of communication. So pay attention to this. Like Gutenberg started the way of communication one to many. Internet changed it from many to one, and social media are creating this way of communication that I call it many to many, and it looks something like this in the picture. I do not know if you are familiar with the Amish communities that are primarily they are spread all around the world, uh, but there are no leaders here. Everybody is contributing in its own. Everybody is bringing. There is no architect. There is no engineer here, but everyone comes together and everyone contributes the same, and everyone it's helping to build the house. And that's what social media is doing actually. Facebook, I would just mention here, Facebook is the main platform here. There are also many other platforms, and Facebook is creating that platform where there is no authority, but they are focusing primarily on communities, and engagement is the key word here. So in order to make our way to the social media, we really need to bring people to the engagement. We need to engage with people. We cannot just put advertisements or stream services. We need to change the way we think and invite people to to uh, to and engage them in gospel conversations. I wanted again to invite Rodina here and to share some of her stories, how he understood the many-to-many communication that the social media brings. Rodina?
Yes, if you can please put the first slide. If you have the slides from, okay. So as you may have noticed, Facebook has this option on groups, and I'm sure that probably all of you are part of one, at least one group on social media, on Facebook. And these groups are organized toward common interest or a specific hobby or yeah, or topic, a theme. Or usually, actually, we see this even in workplace. People are grouping around work, and the communication is happening there. Now, there are different types of groups. There are groups, let's say, if there are groups on workplace, they are managed, and you don't see a lot of communication there. It's from one to many, usually from the admins who are, let's say, the leaders or the directors, and they communicate to their staff. And the communication, it's not that free, I would say. You don't see a lot going on there. But there are other groups like the one that Katie's put on Facebook, and I'm part of this group. It's about, the name of the group is everything about hairs, style, and face masks, actually. And a friend of mine, she invited me here a few years ago because I was interested in things that are organic products. So what I've noticed in this group is that there is a lot of discussion going on. Actually, it's one of the biggest groups in Albanian. It has more than 200,000 people. You can see there probably there are around 263,000 members of this group. And you'd see that the lady that has opened, who owns the group, she's a young businesswoman, and she opened the group with the idea to promote her business. But what she has done, it's something unique, and it illustrates what Katie said from many to many, because she doesn't dominate the conversation. Actually, she jumps in very rarely, and she's very friendly as a person, and she supports. She allows freedom even for members to promote products that are not hers. While she promotes her products, she also leaves others, and that freedom and the support that she provides has helped to create a community. And I see women, they discuss all the time, not only about hair and these organic products and share recipes, but also they are sharing their life challenges, which is for me, especially for our culture. In our culture, people tend to keep the problems, the personal problems inside their home. They don't bring them out in the public. But here, what happens, many women, they are asking for help and they are asking for advice or input for others' opinions, or there are members who send a message in private and they say, please, I need some advice, but don't put my name. But they see the group as a platform, as a place where they are assisted and they find help. And for me, it has been quite challenging because I think the church should be that place. We as a church are that safe community where people can come with their brokenness and their needs and they can ask for help. So personally, I have seen this as a place of service where I can minister. And I've met some young women who were in need of counseling because they were battling with suicide and or depression, and they didn't have money to pay a professional. Because of my background and some counseling training that I have, I could provide that for free for them. But that was the place where I see that, well, I can minister to these women. But as the point where I brought this is this many to many, that they are communicating with each other, and it has gone to the community, and this is what we need. Like, it has helped me also about the pages that I run or the groups. How can I create this community where everyone is speaking? It's not only me, but it takes time, it takes effort, and it takes this kind of servant attitude that we involve others. It's not only us speaking, but we involve others and they speak too, they share, and they feel free to share. So I had two other excuse me, groups. Just as an example, this is spring cleaning. It's a smaller group actually, and it was made with the idea to have a place where we could post about selling or donating, exchanging, and it was mainly among Christian women in the town, in the city. Now it is broader, and we have allowed more people to be part of this, even those who are not Christians. But there are certain guidelines, and I see that once you create, you need more work at the beginning to kind of educate the members, not in a bad sense, but to create that environment that you want. And the admins, they are more necessary at the beginning, but then every member is committed to keep that kind of environment, to respect each other in the way they communicate, and to be honest with each other, or do, let's say, a fair or honest business, even though it's not business because it's like secondhand things that they exchange. But I've seen that when people need something, they come here and they ask, hey, who have a stroller, because, or who has clothes for a baby, because I have someone, I have a friend or a relative, and she is in financial needs, who who is able to donate. And there are many moms or other women, even though they don't have themselves, they know someone who can help. And so this provides a community. People don't come. First, they come for the first need, but then they see that this serves them even greater. And the last group, it's my Bible study group. This is a smaller group. It's a private group, and it's closed, but it's only for the women. And I'm still working here how to make it more many to many, because right now it is me or the leaders that are talking, but the others are not very active, and I'm learning how to ask the right questions every day, so that we are able to share more beyond the meeting that we do, so that we can keep in touch with each other, and we can encourage each other and have that life. So these are great opportunities that if we focus and we use them for our, like, we redeem the purpose of them and use them for the gospel and for discipleship. They are wonderful opportunities, especially during the lockdown, where we could not meet each other, we cannot meet with each other. This can be a great place where we can continue to grow in the Lord and share the gospel.
Thank you, Rodina. So, so that's what we really wanted to um, share with you. The things are changing. We cannot, like, there was a pastor who told me that I am very active in the social media, and when I asked him, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm just streaming my service there online, and I'm putting advertisements, and I'm putting announcements about the church regularly every day." And then that made me think that actually that's one way to use the social media, like by putting advertisements, streaming online. But that's the Gutenberg way of doing it, from one to many. So you just stream the information and treat people as that passive audience. But social media is changing everything, and people wants to be more engaged in the conversation rather than just as a passive audience. And these groups, as Rodina mentioned, and everything that Facebook and other platforms in social media are changing that. And it's being also changed in the businesses, and the church will be affected by this. So I wanted actually to, we wanted, at this point, we really want you to listen from you actually. And I wanted to ask this to Pius. Pius, do you want to continue with breakout groups, or would you rather continue with the presentation? What's best at this point?
Let's go on with the presentation.
Okay. So think about these two questions then. As you think about this presentation, feel free to use chat and Facebook Messenger for those who are uh, listening or looking through Facebook. Ask questions, but I would like for you to think about your own style of ministry communication. Like, is it more a one to many, a many to one, or many to many? And then you need to think, if you are still using the one to many, how do you change? How can we shift the way we think as we are approaching the social media? And I wanted to bring here a quote from Albert Einstein. He says that we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. And it change. It's different. It requires a different kind of thinking. And I really like this word here, because change and transformation in this case requires more an unlearning than rather than just adding more information from what you have, what you already know. And unlearning, it's very interesting. I really like to compare it with this picture here, especially when you go to England. We are used, like you would see these signs here, look right, because the traffic in England, it's different from most of the countries, and the car, it's coming from on your right, which is different from how most of us or most of the tourists are used to. So in this case, you need to unlearn how you think about traffic and embrace a new way of thinking. And that's the same kind of journey we would need to do as we are approaching the social media. Maybe one example comes from Wikipedia, and I will close it with this. So Wikipedia, we all know Wikipedia, but probably not many people know that before Wikipedia was known as Wikipedia, it was called Nupedia. And it was also a free online content where volunteers would put content there. But in Nupedia, in order to have the approval of an article, it was a long process. And Nupedia produced only 12 articles in just the first year, and it was not going well. When Nupedia embraced this many-to-many concept, they started to change, and they saw an exponential change to come to what we know today as Wikipedia. So, um, this is the world we are living in. This is my last slide. In a world where we have been pushing messages to audiences, but the world we are entering in, It's different. Now we are entering into a world where people are looking for engagements. They are looking for communities that sustain relationships. Since Gutenberg started the one-to-many uh, way of communication, it took 300 years for the changes to play themselves. But in the world where we are living and the changes that the social medias are bringing, the change will happen much faster because everything is changing faster, like 10 times faster. And so we need to be prepared, and to understand and unlearn the way that we have been using or doing ministry now that we are engaging people through the social media. Let me close with this video and then we will be over before I start a way to connect with people online.